So this is a cool episode. Thank you so much for coming in today. Obviously, in the industry, there's a lot of myths, a lot of misconceptions, isn't there, for everyone, but in particular for women when it comes to training, many of which I probably take for granted, as obviously I just don't see things through that same lens. So yeah, I'm really, really excited for this chat. So thank you so much for coming in today to chat with me about this.
No, thank you very much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this, actually. I'm really looking forward to getting into the chat about it all.
Oh, great. Amazing. So yeah, I think Danielle, just start by telling us a little bit about yourself really and your experience and your coaching journey. Give people the backstory if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. So I've been a PT for 5-6 years now. Complete career change when I was around 30. Used to work in marketing, business marketing and branding. Kind of did that as best I could, and it just turned out that my interest has always been in training. Qualified, thought worst case scenario I'll be able to train myself better, but I actually fell in love with it. Sounds a bit cliche, but that's what happened.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I was very fortunate. I took a big risk and it paid off very well for me. So that's kind of a complete gear change for me in terms of career and sort of where I was going, and then sort of been training ever since then, to be honest. The women's health stuff kind of came in off the back of my own health concerns and health issues that I had, and researching around for my own benefit through all sorts of different pathways and referrals and very long, arduous processes, that there just wasn't really the information or like this ability to kind of connect the dots between what was sort of health and well-being overall and the effects of a menstrual cycle and the effects of what overtraining, or even most actually in part, is under recovering, fueling your body correctly, and those sorts of things as well. So it took a lot of time to me to kind of figure out what was going on with my body and why, and that's what the driver was, kind of between me not just being a trainer, but actually the pairing between health and well-being, and almost like this holistic view of everything outside of it. It's not just the 2 hours that you spend in the gym, it's everything else around it: stress management, sleep, looking at your cycle, keeping an eye on it, see what is going on. Are there patterns? Is there changes? Because it's such a key indicator of health, particularly for women, whether it's regular or not, to just have that information. Information is really powerful. So to just have that and have an awareness. And then it was just more through talking with clients, and they were asking me conversations, and I'm very fortunate. I've had clients for years now. So it's like a friendship, and it's a real true relationships that I value very highly. So it's quite open and honest conversation, and that's how I treat my clients. And if they ask me something, I'm very honest and open in return. So it was the more I was speaking about my issues and concerns, the more and more this was sort of coming up from everybody else as well. Yeah. And just realising how prevalent these things were, and it just isn't or wasn't really being spoken about at all. So it was then for me to sort of research this, and like for endometriosis, for example, or PCOS, or adenomyosis might be another one, and someone's got cysts, or and then it will fall down to sort of the carryover of things like egg freezing, or if someone's got fertility issues, and it all just ties in back to the menstrual cycle and our health as women, how fundamentally important it is to just even have an understanding of what the menstrual cycle is, what a change might be and what that can lead to, and how the benefits of having an active lifestyle, and that's just not going to the gym and checking a box, but how's your sleep? How's your stress management? Are you fueling correctly? Are you hydrated? And everything else in and around it as well. And that's the main driver of how I train my clients, how I work with my clients. And it's always sort of fundamental and very, very central to the way that we work together as client and coach. So it's a really important part of it.
Yeah, it's so key. Just get that a little bit closer. I think that's all right. Thank you. I think it's hard, isn't it? Because so many people think they're automatically doing something that's positive for their health if they train more, eat less. Yeah. They're more rigid with their meal plan. They're like, oh, I'm on it. And unfortunately, whilst for guys that still can cause some negatives, but typically results in positives, at least for body composition. Yeah. In females, often it goes the other way, which is obviously incredibly unfortunate because you feel like you're doing everything right. So yeah, such an important topic.
It really is. And we like kind of this generational thing is like this leftover diet culture of don't eat because you want to be skinny, but then there's this other driver of this real train as much as you can, do as much as you can. But yeah, there are the anomalies, and there are these women that can do that and they can maintain that. But for the most part, it's being smart and training smart, but not always training the most, not always training the hardest, but actually giving your body and yourself a little bit of time to just sort of understand when to pull back, when to push. And that's just not in line with the cycle, but just generally through life as well, and understanding sort of where your balance is. And that would be like lining 10 different women up. Everybody's going to be completely different.
Yeah.
They could have exactly the same goals, but how you get there and how their bodies are going to respond to how they get there is going to be completely different. So it's comparing apples and oranges, and there's still a hell of a lot of comparison. That conversations I have time and again with clients, with friends, like of, oh, well, so-and-so's doing this and she's on this deficit and it's not working for me and I've tried this. And it's a real, still quite a difficult conversation to have with some, but it is changing. And there's definitely a shift in around women wanting to be strong, wanting to be fit and healthy and well, and not just skinny or not just the smallest. So there's a real sort of shift, and you can see that in a gym as well. Like, the weights room are filled with women now, which is amazing to see. I love to see it, and they're strong, they're capable, they're really confident when they train, and it's admirable and it's amazing to see. There's more of a balance now. So yeah, it's definitely going in the right direction, but there's still kind of work to do. And I think that's where it starts with the conversations around it, asking people questions and not being afraid to just have those conversations and do the research and a little bit of reading around certain things as well.
Yeah, I love that. If you don't mind me asking, what were some of the symptoms or kind of issues that you had that kind of led you into learning more about this area?
So I lost my cycle completely. And then I had all sorts of tests, from blood tests to examinations to ultrasounds, and through endocrinologists, GPs, referrals, and there was all sorts of other symptoms as well, significant pain, nausea, sort of severe fatigue, and I was sort of getting all of these different answers to which there was no real specific sort of conclusion as to what it might be, and nothing was changing. I was doing what I was advised and there was no change. So it kind of took it into my own hands. It's like, right, I need to kind of make sense of this because I'm not getting a coherent sort of anything from anyone. And it was about 2 years all in that it took, alongside my sort of reading and research and just trying to connect the dots myself, alongside test results that weren't coming back with anything, or referrals that weren't really leading to any sort of specific direction as to what I could do. And it was just incredibly frustrating to sort of time and again either be told, well, we don't know what it is, but you should be fine. It's like, well, I'm not fine. Yeah, I'm clearly not fine. So it was just out of frustration as well. But yeah, it took probably about 2 years all in to sort of recalibrate, if you will, and sort of get it back. I don't know what the one thing was, but I literally just had to zoom out and just go like, right, what's good here? What's not working? Keep the things that are working. Let's look at the things that aren't. Give it a bit of time. Do I adjust this? Do I bring my calories up? Do I reduce sort of step count and daily activity, for example? Does that need to be increased? And then I manage my diet a little bit better. And it's just a case of sort of all these like puzzle pieces almost, and you're just trying to shift the bits in that then make it what you need it to be. So it's a real sort of test and learn process. But I'm really glad to have gone through it because I genuinely understand what it is and what this frustration is. When women come to me and be like, all right, I've now got PCOS, or I've finally got a confirmed diagnosis of endometriosis that's taken 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. I think the average is 7 to 8 years, which is like, it's wild to just think, how does it take that long? And it is debilitating. Some of these conditions literally turn women's lives upside down, and it's just like, come on. Like, you shouldn't really have to rally and battle to get just some information about your body so you can try and live a better life. So I do as best as I can to do my reading, do my research, and what is suitable for this client, what is suitable for her and her body. Okay, anecdotally, her experience, she's trained for ages. She's got PCOS. This lady's brand new to training. She's got PCOS. So what are the mechanisms and the tools that are going to be appropriate for her? What are the tools and mechanisms and things and habits and behaviours that are going to be appropriate for this lady? It's similar, but it's never the same. And it's just having that overall awareness and like this additional layer of consideration and empathy as well as to what these women might be going through and feeling and the frustration, and doing as best as I can to sort of help them, give them information and staying well in my lane. But I've seen the benefits, and I've like felt the benefits for myself and through clients and through friends of what it is to sort of have this more well-rounded life, a healthful life that includes training, it includes walking or swimming or yoga, running, whatever your hobbies are. But it starts with sleep, consistency, fueling yourself correctly, and just finding the patterns and the routines that work for you. So it all sort of brings it back to that kind of central focus of like this just general sort of taking time for yourself and figuring out where those bits and pieces are for each person individually, rather than this blanket like X equals Y and then you'll be fixed, because it's so far from that. I wish it was that simple, but it's just not. So
yeah, which of course is frustrating because people are trying to kind of figure this stuff out themselves. They're like, what do I Google? Who do I ask? But I mean, let's spend a minute on that if that's okay. Because what you said there was really interesting, and it's a common problem I see is obviously going to the GP, getting the specialist referrals. And obviously it's a problem if that's actually not helping, you're not getting a diagnosis, your symptoms aren't improving. Of course, that's a problem. But I've always seen and always felt it kind of doubles up as another problem, which is it puts the emphasis, as you said, on it being like one thing and like one issue. And as you said, like you don't really know what that one thing was. And that's probably because it might not have been one thing. It is, as you said, it's all of these pieces of the puzzle. So I'm chatting with my female clients and they're like, oh, I've got this specialist, a referral appointment. And they're kind of talking to me about this. And I'm like, it makes the client think that this one issue is centered to like one thing in one specific area of the body, and it has one specific diagnosis, which really I've always found makes it very hard for them to understand this holistic bigger picture of how we need to address sleep, nutrition, training, stress management. And that almost makes our job harder and ultimately makes the client's health improving a bit more difficult, because they're disregarding all of this stuff over here because of kind of the way the system's set up in terms of pushing them to a specific specialist referral. And that's just obviously a little bit of a broken system.
It is, and it's almost like this, certainly in my experience, this need to kind of pass the buck. And I would rather a GP just said to me, I don't know, I really don't know, go away and do your research, and then maybe you can find a path for yourself, because at the moment I'm not either equipped, I don't have the time, I don't even understand what this is, or I haven't had the education. I would rather someone have said that to me. I know they're probably not going to say that, but it would have saved my time. And I would have known that I'm basically smacking my head against the wall trying to get an answer out of someone that doesn't know what the answer is. So I would rather someone just say, maybe go private, go to this, go and get your bloods done, see what that information then presents. And then you can go from there and kind of find a path for yourself. And then maybe come back to me and we can look at the blood work, or just something that's actually helpful, rather than just going, don't know, maybe try this, but we're not entirely sure. So let's just sort of spin the wheels for a while. Like it's incredibly frustrating, but like you say, it's kind of this, oh well, if we fix that then everything will be magic and everything will be fine, and it's just not. Like on the odd occasion it may well be that there's some inherent stress factor that once that's dealt with, whether it's life, whether it's whatever it might be, financial, however stress might present, the body still has the same sort of reactive response, so it's going to present as that, and that might be fixed and then that might be it. But on the very rare occasion, so it's exactly as you say, it's looking at the bigger picture and actually what can we kind of adjust here. Okay, you're having 5 hours sleep a night and then you're working a 12 to 14 hour day, and then you want to come in and train for an hour, or you want to go and throw yourself through a class.
There's no prescription pill for that, unfortunately.
No, exactly. There is not a magic pill for this stuff. So it's actually just about, okay, what can we do? What do you enjoy? What makes you feel good? What makes you feel happy? What don't you enjoy? Don't go to a class that you don't like because you feel the need to check that box. Like if it's something you don't enjoy, obviously there are times and places that we all have to do everything. We're all adults, but there's still this inherent, well, I need to go and do that because I've not done anything. And I'm like, you've just had a 15-hour day. Like, do you feel like you're even able to do it? And they're like, no, but I should. And it's just like, yes, sometimes maybe you should, but not 4, 5, 6 days out of the week. Like it's a real battle with some people to sort of try and undo that and just try and get them to kind of see the wood for the trees, I suppose, in a sense, and just be like, no, actually, instead of you getting up at 6 a.m, you would far more benefit from having an extra hour in bed 3 nights, 3 mornings of the week than you would dragging yourself through a class. Like and it's then sort of how you sort of frame it. And I think that's our responsibility as coaches to then, because everybody communicates differently, and it's how they respond to that communication and how you frame it as a coach that's going to be suitable for them to receive that information, that then they're going to understand where their benefits are for them. So someone I could say, do your sleep, that's fine. They'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. I get that. And someone else would be like, well, that makes no sense. Like, why would I choose sleep when I could come in and burn 300 calories? And it's just like, okay, right, we've got to reframe this kind of a little bit here. And then it's just a case of sort of working with the person that's in front of you, understanding their experiences and where they're coming from, and also their goals. What do they want to do? Like, how are they going to achieve it? And you just have to be very, very honest. And it is quite difficult conversations, but coming from a place of empathy and understanding, it's normally better received. But you just have to have patience with some people, because it's a real sort of ingrained process thinking, a way of like using exercise, and it's still sometimes it's left over. If I'm not basically crawling out of a class, then I've not done my job. And it's just like,
if I'm not red zone on the my zone.
Yeah, exactly. They're not like fully out of it. So there is a time and a place for that. I get that. And there is a time and a place for that sort of thing for everyone for the most part. But it's just sort of trying to bring some people back down here, and then there's other people you're like, right, okay, let's get a structure in place. Let's get you to a class. Let's get you moving more. Let's get you doing this, because your overarching goal is you inherently need to drop some fat. Like, it's as simple as that. For your health and well-being, you need to drop some body fat. You need to decrease your body size. So what can we do? So it's the same conversation, but completely different ends of the spectrum that you're having these conversations. And it's almost negotiation with some people. It's like, right, how about this? And then we'll meet somewhere in the middle, because I know you're never going to do this. So I'm just going to get you down to about here. And then you sort of go again in a month's time, go again in 2 months' time. And then sort of they will eventually get to where they want to be. And there is a switch with mindset and approach. Some people it takes a week, some people it takes a year, some people it takes however long in between that. So it's just knowing the person in front of you. And communication is so fundamental as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think, no, that's amazing. That reminds me of a really fun client story, actually. But yeah, before we get into that, because there's loads to unpack there, that's really great. And ultimately, I think if we can help people to understand that sometimes more is not better, then I think that's a great outcome for the podcast. But yeah, before we get into that, I'd be curious to know, like, just going back to kind of your own situation, I've kind of got two questions there, if that's all right. And the first one is, I'd be interested to know kind of like what things the doctors were saying to you in terms of like why you might have had some of these symptoms or diagnoses. What things were they recommending or getting you to try, just because that might be quite relatable for people. And also I'm interested in hearing that. And then the other part of that question is, knowing what you know now with kind of all of your, health and female health education in particular, what do you kind of think was happening in hindsight, knowing what you know now?
So mine was basically, they were just like, oh, you must be stressed. I was like, right, I've had, like everybody, I've had really stressful times in my life. I wasn't feeling stressed. Sleep was pretty good. So the basic things were being checked off for the most part. So it didn't really, the timeline didn't really correlate. And it was like, well, this sort of basic GP blood test is saying that you're fine. I think my iron levels were low, so I'm borderline anemic anyway. But it was like, oh, we'll grab onto that. So it's probably because you're anemic. And it's like, well, technically I'm not anemic, I'm borderline. So it was like those conversations, and it was like any sort of small snippet was sort of brought up. That was kind of what was lent on. And then they were like, oh, it's probably thyroid. So you're borderline hypothyroid, so underactive thyroid. And they were like, oh, well, we're going to put you on thyroxine. I was like, how borderline am I? And they were like, no, you're like just enough. And I was like, thyroxine's for life. So why would I take thyroxine if it's not going to be truly beneficial for me to take it? I was like, what are the chances here that basically it's going to actually improve anything? They were like, well, we don't know, because it's only minimal, but we'd rather just give you something. Basically was sort of the communication, and have that, and then we can kind of check the box of you kind of being dealt with. And it's not
really a little trial and error kind of drug,
no,
is it?
Not
so
really. It's not one you just want to dip into and then be like, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. Like,
it's not how that works.
It was a really bizarre thing, and then the conversation literally just wound round and round, and then to the point of where I was like, you know what, fine, I'll take thyroxine, fine. If this is going to help me and it's going to get me to some form of feeling well, fine. I took it. I was given one dose of, I think it was 100, then I got whacked up to 200, then 250, and then I got dropped down. So it was like...
250 is high.
Yeah. And it really was like this sporadic prescription, but it wasn't the same doctor.
Right.
So it was even that was a disconnected process as well. So I've obviously got your notes and everything else like that, but then someone's like, well, this is too low, this needs to go up, or this is too high, this needs to go up. And I just got so fed up with it because it was so frustrating. I just took myself off of it anyway. I just stopped taking it because I was just like, well, there's no symptoms or signs to tell me that this is helping me. None of you are on the same page, and this is going into my body, so I'm not really comfortable with this. So I just stopped that. The symptoms stayed pretty much the same. It wasn't like there was some sort of sudden drop off or miraculous change or anything like that. So I was like, well, I'm not really any worse off for not having it, and I actually feel better for not taking something that I didn't feel comfortable taking in the first place. So that was kind of what it was for me. And then I just really dialed in on nutrition, and I looked at what I was eating, looked at sort of meal timing as well for me. So I know that's a slightly more complex step in and around that, but it wasn't necessarily affecting my training, but I would get probably 2/3 of the way through a session, and it would just like, I'd have nothing in me. Like there was just nothing left. So it's like, right, okay, let's try and feel better around training. Let's see if that makes a difference over the next couple of weeks, over the next month, and then we'll sort of build that back in. How's sleep? Okay, working early hours for sleep. Can I do anything here in and around that, even just to improve sleep quality? I'm not going to get 8-9 hours a night because my day starts at 5 and I finish about 9-10 o'clock. Like it's just not feasible. So where can I find the little wins, which is something I do a lot with clients, is just the little wins and the little bits and pieces that we can do. Let's do them. Keep the stuff that's working, and let's look at the stuff that's not and what is actually achievable over the short term, a little bit longer term, and then sort of building that picture for a much, much sort of longer term view as well. So that was just what I did with myself, and it was just a process of sort of building that back. And I didn't have a timeline. It was just a case of I need to get better and I need to feel better. So let's just do that, and hopefully that comes sooner than later, basically. So that was kind of how it all came about with me, to be honest.
And you think that was about a kind of a 2-year time period?
It was about 2 years, yeah.
A fairly decent chunk of time.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it like mine in comparison to many women is like nothing, which is really sad that it's like the comparison is literally like up to a decade, if not longer, for some women. And then that sort of thing leads into like perimenopause, menopause, postmenopausal stages, which obviously is in its own lane entirely, but that can be decades for women, and that's also changing. And the view and the way in which women of that age are viewed as well, the way that they approach training. I've got quite a few clients of that age as well, and it's incredible to see them, and it's lovely to see the benefits of what it is of training and just having their routine and making time for themselves, and they've really been able to lean on it when they've needed it most. So it's been a real privilege actually to work with that kind of demographic as women. It's really, really nice to be able to see what it can do to sort of have something that is your own, that makes you feel better even when you're feeling your absolute worst. And that's what I lent on training with as well, very, very heavily. Like that was my thing, that even on a low day, just moving my body made me feel better, even if it was not the weights I wanted to be shifting, if it wasn't a full session. But I was able to do that. That was something for me that meant a lot to me, and it made me feel good. So that's why I did it. So I can understand sort of why other people hold on to it as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important, isn't it? It's just knowing that rather than setting yourself up to fail by kind of having this big program and I've got to get all this volume in, and then you sometimes feel a little bit worse for it. It's like, as you've just said that, I feel better for doing something, and just kind of honouring where your energy levels are at.
Exactly it. Like I will ask all of my clients, right, your worst week. We're starting from the very worst. If you've got kids, they're driving you mad, one's sick, one's at school, work's gone wild, something's happened with the family, like in your absolute worst week, what are we doing? What's training? Are you going to a yoga class? Can you get out for a walk? How many times realistically can you train in that week? What does that look like in terms of a session? And that's where we start, and that's with everybody. And then we build upon that, because once you get the very fundamental and basic routine established, you kind of want to make it so you win from early on, because the incentive then is, oh, I'm doing this. This is cool. Like, this is easy. I can add another one in, or I can add another half an hour, or yeah, I've got this. I've got like a 15-minute walk either end of the day outside of my however many hours at work. I can do this, rather than going, right, I'm going to hit 20,000 steps a day, even though I started on 6. So let's just nearly triple what I've been doing. I'm going to train 5 times a week, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. It's just like, just make your life easy and do something that you know you can achieve, and then sort of that just incentivizes you to keep going, rather than going, oh my God, I set myself up for all of this stuff. I'm barely hanging on here and it's Wednesday and I've got another 3 days left of the work week, and then I've got 2 classes over the weekend that I said I would do, and oh my God, I'm only on 9,000 steps. I've got another 11,000 to do. I'm not going to leave the office for another 6 hours. Like it just feeds into that whole thing that we're trying to just sort of manage and help as best as we can. So yeah, that's the way that I approach it with my clients. And even sometimes myself, I'm like, right, okay, be realistic here. What actually can you do? Because there's no point me saying, yeah, I want to do my 4-day program. Realistically, where are we going to get those sessions in? If I've got half an hour to train, I'm not getting an hour session in half an hour. So it's like, right, pick your battles. What can you do? What's going to be feasible here? So even for myself, you have to just kind of feel it in as well a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, such an important message, isn't it? I think in the world of, you know, like Andy Facila's 75 hard and everything else you see on social media, which is about, you know, doing more and doing it every day. You know, if you don't do it 7 days a week or at least 5 days a week, it doesn't count. I think that is such an important message, you know, really for everyone, but for women in particular, when you do potentially have some of these conditions, whether it's PCOS, HA, endometriosis, like more is typically worse. So that is a really important message.
It's kind of the enemy for the most part of it as well. But yeah, like, although it's definitely moving in the right direction, it does seem to be getting into this point of, well, screw you, you've not done your job and you've not done a half an hour session before it, you've not meditated, you've not drunk 5 litres of water today, you've not had 35 different vegetables. Like, it's getting a little bit that way. Yeah. But it's just a case of trying to sort of silence the noise and just find the bits that work for you, and actually just kind of stay in your own lane a little bit. Like, don't set your hopes too high, because it's just unrealistic for the most part. Yeah,
I'm laughing because I really noticed that the other day. I was like, only the fitness industry can take the parts that should be good for people, like the recovery side of it, like eating more vegetables, like maybe doing something like your meditation, but we've like tried to make that stuff so hardcore that most people in trying to do that just get stressed, they fail, they haven't done it, and it's like completely counterproductive.
The irony of it, like people trying to force themselves to meditate and they're like, I must meditate. And it's like, okay, right, fine, this is supposed to be like enjoyable, it's not supposed to be competitive, and you're not supposed to be like beating yourself up because you've not had some broccoli today, or you've not done your 20 different classes that you're supposed to do, and you've not done your training session. Like, there's a hell of a lot of pressure people put on themselves, and it's just like sometimes this, but I haven't done that, so I need to do that. But it's like, yeah, but you really don't, and you don't want to do it either, and it's not going to get you to where you want to be. So it's
super important. Especially if you're a client listening, I think it's really important to know that you can, or at least should be able to have that conversation with your coach. I think a lot of the time clients are like, oh, well, you know, the coach has, you know, can't have this plan with me, and hopefully explained why I need to be doing those things. So therefore they're like, I have to do them. It's stressing me out, but I can't really tell them that. I had a client turn around today, you know, great girl, and her fasting blood sugar's well into the 7s, blood pressure's elevated despite being like super lean, young, fit and healthy, HA, you know, overtrained, over dieted over the years. And I was like, look, if it's causing you more stress than it's worth to continue taking these markers, because it's just kind of reminding you your health's not in a great place, I was like, then it's not serving us. We don't need to do it. Like, thank you for telling me that. We've done it for a couple of weeks at the start. We know they're not amazing. We know that therefore there's some stuff we need to address there. We don't need to keep taking them if that's just serving us a daily reminder to you that, hey, like, my health metrics aren't good. I was like, so, you know, thank you for telling me that. Let's drop these out. We'll revisit this in a couple months.
Exactly. And it just is that one thing that just takes the pressure off. Like, some of my clients, they want to do their weigh-ins every day. Some of my other clients, that is their idea of hell. Yeah. If I did it, I genuinely don't think they'd stay with me either. Like, it's just, they don't want to know, for one, or people are so triggered by that sometimes. There's such an emotional thing behind, certainly for women. I know it does happen for guys as well, but this correlation between weight and worth, and if you're smaller, you're better, or life is better, or you're going to be seen in a certain way. And it's, I explain to my clients, it's the context of what it is that weight actually is. You being 75, the lady next to you being 75, me being 75, and then another 20 women along the way. It's going to be completely different. What that 75 might look like across all of those women couldn't be more different. So it's just about sort of putting a little bit of education, information around it, and just going, yeah, that's what that is. But actually, this number is this, 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 and this. It's not just that. So it's really sort of, as you say, as us as coaches, we do have to support these people and give them information and guidance. And like, if it's not suitable, it's not suitable. It's like some people with tracking calories are fine. Other people could be the worst thing they could ever do.
Yeah.
So it's just a case of knowing what works for the person that's in front of you and being able to create a space that hopefully, like you say, is honest communication from their side as well. And when something's not right, they just go, look, I'm not actually comfortable with doing this. I don't want to do this. Like for some of my clients, for example, we have to get like this baseline information because of potentially their health concerns and stuff. And for me also, I want to just know where we're starting from. So it'll always be a very honest conversation from me. Are you comfortable with doing this? Do you want me to talk through the numbers? No. Okay, some I actually put a towel over the machine because they genuinely don't want to know because it's such a loaded thing for them. But they've said they want me to have the information so they know where we're starting from, but they do not want to know for 3 months, 4 months, maybe never. And then we'll do it again. And it'll be the same conversation. Do you want to know? Do you want to talk through it? No, fine. Then I've got where we're going, but I don't need to share it with them because I know what we need to do to either get us going in the right direction, or perhaps we have to just find another route or do something else to keep us tracking to where we want to get to. So it's so different for everybody. But like you said with your client, she felt comfortable enough to talk to you and just be like, I'm not good with this. Like it's not like helpful for me. I don't enjoy it. I don't feel great by doing this. So how nice that you've been able to create that relationship that she feels confident and comfortable enough with you to be able to have that conversation, which I think is so important.
Yeah, super important.
For everybody to have that relationship. It's a really important one.
Yeah, no, it's so key. Why do you think people struggle a little bit with this? You know, harder is better when it comes to training, doing more is better, less calories is better. Where do you think that's kind of come from with women in particular?
I think it's leftover diet culture. There's still this, don't eat if you want to be skinny, train harder because it's going to equal calorie burn, and the more calories you burn, the smaller you're going to get, or the more you're going to look like this person that you're not going to look like because it's not your body.
Yeah.
Like it's still this comparison thing as well. And I think the prevalence of social media, for all of the good that it does, there is the same, if not more, negative. And it's this snapshot into someone's life that potentially is posed, potentially has filters on it. If they are one of the very fortunate few people that has just got an incredible physique year round, props to them. But that is 98% of us that do not look like that. So it's that real sort of thing. And I think it's the accessibility of, well, I've done this and I've done all of this work, but I don't look like that yet. And there's almost like this delayed gratification, and a lot of people aren't patient enough. And I don't think there's a full understanding of sometimes what it takes to get to where you want to get to, and realistically what that actually takes to get there. So for example, someone might come in, not for a very long time, but I've had it before when people will come in and they'll go, I want to look like this. And I'm like, right,
well, literally showed you a photo.
Random person on the internet that we have absolutely no information on and no idea who they are, but fine. Okay, I can kind of understand the sort of body that you want to do. What sort of training are you into? Well, I don't like lifting weights and I don't like doing this and I don't like doing this. Right, well, we're looking at someone that pretty much looks like they could be a CrossFit athlete, so we've kind of got a few issues here already. So it's some people are not that extreme, but it's more a case of, right, if you want to get to this size, we're going to need to do a significant calorie deficit. How's your cycle? Not great. Okay, my recommendation is that we don't touch your diet for a while then, because we need to find some sort of balance in and around that. And it's kind of, that is where it comes into like all these little pieces and nuances, and actually having the open sort of honest communication with people and being like, right, if you want to get here, this is the remit of, you're not drinking, you can't really go out for dinner that much because your calories are going to be pretty tight, your training regime is going to be pretty strict in that sense, you're going to have to do your cardio if you want to get here. And they're like, I don't want to do that. It's like, okay, right, well then what we want to do is going to get you to here. Then perhaps when we're here, we can revisit what it might take for us to get to there. But for the most part, the goals shift. Once they start working and training with me, that feeling, particularly those that are either had a long gap from training or relatively new to training sometimes as well, when they feel stronger, they feel fitter, they feel more able and capable, their confidence starts to increase. And it's actually like, no, actually, I would rather be able to lift more. I would rather be able to run a 5K. I've actually want to enter a half marathon next year. And the goals just switch, and it's such a nice thing to see. Don't get me wrong, I train for aesthetics as well, and I don't believe that anybody doesn't to some degree. But that switch goes from this intrinsic thing and needing to move away from the body that they're in into this sort of more forward thinking, moving towards a body and something external that they want to achieve. So whether it's I want to be able to deadlift double body weight or whatever it might be, I want to be able to squat my body weight. And it's that shift as well is a big thing for me with clients, is in not fighting against where they're at, but let's look at where we're going to move to and move like forward in a positive way rather than just beating yourself up for where you are, because even a small step forward is still a step forward to where you want to be. So it's just a case of managing that as well. But yeah, it for the most part, it does change. Like there's still the aesthetic stuff there. Obviously people want to look good and feel good. Like people want to look good naked. That's the whole point. But this real shift around, oh, okay, didn't even know I'd be able to do that. Didn't even have that in my brain. And they'll be like, well, I've seen that person doing that exercise. Can I try that? Can I do that? I want to learn what the hip thrust is. I want to learn how to do a pull-up. I want to know how to do a push-up. And it's just a cool thing to be able to suddenly see, particularly for women as well, like to see them switch and change and just have a little bit more self-belief and confidence, and then just go, oh yeah, cool, actually, like not where I am, where I want to be, but I'm a hell of a lot better than I was. And it's not this, oh my God, I hate myself so much, I hate this, I need to change my body, I need to look like this person or anybody but myself, but much more this forward thinking of okay, cool, I'm making progress, I'm getting there. So it's a real shift for some people as well, which is, it's lovely to see.
Yeah. I think that there's two real points I want to highlight from what you said, because I think they're so great, which is sometimes that obviously less is actually more in terms of moving that forwards, and the unfortunate reality sometimes on time frames, because obviously everyone wants it to take weeks rather than months. But so I to one client, I think it was kind of, I mean, it's not a crazy story to like me and you when we understand this, but it kind of sounds like a little bit of a crazy story. And she trains first thing every morning. She was a doctor, so long stressful days, 5 mornings a week. You know, why do you train 5 mornings a week? She was like, well, you know, it's routine, I like it, I get up, it keeps it the same every day. She's like, okay, cool, sure. You're getting up at 4:30 to do this, but okay, sure. You know, she's got some aesthetic goals, wants to lose a little bit of body fat, get stronger, all of that stuff, right? But also doesn't have a cycle. So, okay, so well, probably need to focus on that first. I'm like, we probably need to sleep a bit more and reduce your training volume. She's just like, I'm not prepared to do that. I'm like, okay, well, your calorie intake's quite low. So, you know, as you said earlier, it's that compromise. I was like, maybe we could address that first and we'll leave your training. She was like, yeah, great. So over like 4 months, got her up to like 2,500 calories per day. So nice, good amount of food. Yeah. She's not gained any body fat. You know, energy's obviously a little bit better, but she's still overtraining, still not getting enough sleep, and ovulation's still not occurring. Okay. You know, that cycle's not really coming back. And it's like, hey, probably need to revisit the thing over here. And I was like, I know you love doing it every day. Can we kind of go Monday, Wednesday, Friday? I was like, you know, can we give it a try? She was, I think at this point, she was probably just a little bit like, yeah, I'm feeling pretty tired from training. Yeah. Been doing it quite a while. So yeah, she was like, look, let's give it a try. And I think that, you know, she never really said this, but I think it was a little bit more around having that hardcore identity as someone that wakes up at 4:30, goes to the gym and then does their day as a doctor. I think it was just as much that, if not more that, than actually enjoying training every morning. There's a sense of admiration almost in it. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I've been that person, and to some extent I still am that person. But it's like you say, it's finding that balance of where that is. And yeah, okay, that's cool. You've been up at 4:30. You've absolutely smashed your session. You've had a mad day at work. You've got an incredible job role. And then you can go out and have a great evening. Like, fair play, props to you. But is it sustainable? It's not serving you and your body. So yeah, on the surface that looks great, but actually when we just dig a little deeper, it's not that great, because your body is not functioning the way that we would like it to be functioning. So something's got to give here. We pulled out the Tuesday and Thursday morning training sessions, and 6 weeks later she had an ovulatory cycle. And
how cool is that? That it doesn't always take forever in a day. For sometimes your body just goes, yeah, great, thanks so much.
Yeah, now, appreciate that.
Thank you for that. Like we're good. And now she's got that back, and the advice you gave her was so important. And it's not like you suddenly said, well, that's it, you can't train. And I think it's just, again, for letting people know, women in particular, that you drop into 4 training days a week, the world is not going to implode and you're not going to suddenly put on 25 kilos. Like, it's that you don't need to train every day. You don't need that more is more mentality.
Yeah.
Your body needs to recover as hard as you train. There has to be that balance.
Yeah.
So it's still sort of having that conversation around, yeah, you don't need to do it every day to make progress. And law of diminishing returns, isn't it, as well? Like, and it's just that conversation as well. But how nice for you to have had that information and been able to finally get her to sort of get to a place where she's like, yeah, okay, fine, let's try it.
And I think that this message coming from people that sell personal training for a living should hopefully like really hit home how much we mean it, because it's like, if more was better, great, because my clients would do more sessions.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, there's nothing in it.
Time and again.
Yeah, like, yes, you can train twice a day, 5 days a week, like, sure, but like there's no benefit for us in saying that. Like, it does the opposite from a job perspective. So it is really that it is, you know, the truth and how it is. But yeah, the amazing thing for this client is we've obviously had to detour initially, right, from the other goals, the aesthetic goals, but now she trains 3 times a week and is on 2,500 calories a day. So that's a really nice position to be in when it comes to creating a deficit, if the goal's fat loss, or if she turns around and goes, do you know what, I'm not even bothered about that anymore because I've been enjoying training for more strength and performance because I'm actually recovering, I'm actually sleeping. Then you've got all of this flexibility with sustaining that, because obviously you've just got a much larger buffer of calories.
Way more to be able to then use, rather than someone that's probably crippling themselves on like a 1,500 or an 1,800 calorie diet or deficit. Nothing's happening, nothing's changing. Yeah, you're training 6 times a week, you're eating like a sparrow, like, no wonder. Like, it doesn't make sense. And I have been in that position, and it took a long time for me to get my brain around the fact that if I eat more food, I will be better. My body will look how I want it to. Like, it's a real, I understand trying to understand it. It doesn't really make sense at first, but it's just building that trust. And like you obviously clearly have with your client as well there, she trusted you after a while, albeit, but she did.
Yeah, it took a little compromise first.
Yeah, exactly, like many do as well. A lot of people, you don't often go, yeah, that's a great idea, I'll do exactly what you say. There's a little bit of sort of between first for the most part. But enough, she then trusted you enough that it was like, okay, I'm not comfortable doing this. I don't really understand this, but I'm actually going to do it because you are the professional, you are my coach. So, and I think we do have serious responsibility with that, whether it's male or female, to be honest with these people and build that level of trust. And when too much is too much, it's too much. Like, it's as simple as that. Like, and just have the confidence to have those conversations as well, I think is inherently important.
Yeah, 100%. I think hopefully as a concept, we've kind of nailed that sometimes less is more, especially from a female health standpoint. So in terms of like some specifics, obviously I know it's going to be, you know, super person dependent on how you'd approach them as a person and also what their health needs. But if you have got a new female client that comes and works with you, maybe they've got a specific diagnosis, maybe they don't, but it is a case of underfueling, overtraining, not recovering. What are some first action steps you would look to take with this client to kind of break that cycle and move them in the right direction?
Yeah, of course. So all my consultations, like, we go through a pretty thorough almost questionnaire, but I do it face to face anyway. Like, I send a few questions to just get a little bit of information firsthand. So I like to have a little bit of an understanding of the person I'm going to meet, but I would rather have that conversation in person and engage in that information. And what do I need to help her? What do I need to research? What do I need to look at? Like, what sort of person is she? How does she communicate? And how do they respond to what I'm suggesting? And all of those sorts of things as well, which to me is way more valuable face to face, and having like an honest like communication and setting the tone from the go. So basically, we'll always look at sleep, always look at cycle, nutrition, training experience, goals. Have you lost weight significantly before? Have you had any prior injuries? What's your sleep been like? What's your cycle been like? Are you on any birth control? Do you have any conditions that I need to be aware of? Like, and it's just building this picture on that person that's in front of you. Whether it's an injury that was 2 years ago, do we need to be mindful of that? How did it happen? How did it happen? And all of that sort of thing as well, because it just feeds into everything. But the main things for me are always sleep. How many times you train in a week? Have you had a PT before? Because their experience may be very, very different. So it's understanding if they know what working with a coach is like, if they've had that experience of working with a trainer, and whether it's programming or whatever that might be, understanding their goals, and then just a conversation, whether or not they have conditions to consider or not. Cycle is obviously really important, whether there's irregularities or not. A regular cycle is a rare thing, but it does happen. And then someone that doesn't have any health conditions is also rare, but it does happen. So then it's like, okay, cool. What do you want to do? What can I help you with here? Because you've come to me. So what do you feel that is missing from yours? So it's also giving them responsibility and asking them questions, because I can do the best program in the world. If you are not able to follow it, it's not going to do anything. So it's having realistic expectations and, right, okay, you want to achieve this in this time. Okay, cool. That's what it's going to take to get there. This is the program that I would suggest. Off of this, do like a screening, a movement screening assessment as well, to see how that body is going to move, and just genuinely getting some more information off of that person, so that I can then prescribe appropriate movement basically for them based off of that. And then that's sort of where it all starts from. And I've got no issue with adjusting a program or with adjusting things. If I see something in a session, I'll be like, okay, that's not great. I'm not really sure on that movement for now, so let's regress it. Let's progress that's more suitable. You wanted to learn how to do a pull-up. This is where we're going to start from here. So it's that real sort of, okay, this is cool. This is where we're starting from, based on the information you've given me, based on the things that I've seen and the information I've taken from how you move, and then going from there. And then it'll be like weekly check-ins. How's your sleep been? I always have like a casual conversation with everybody, like, how's your sleep? How's work? How are the kids if they're there? Like, if one's been up since 4 o'clock in the morning, you're not going to be feeling 110%. So if you've had a really stressful week at work, today's probably not going to be the day that we're then going to go for your deadlift PB. Where are you in your cycle? Blah, blah, blah. So it's just a case of using that information to then inform even what we do on a day-to-day basis in terms of sessions, but then more widely speaking across the week. What do we need to pull back on? Maybe we need to do a slightly lighter session today. Maybe let's look at some skill work instead of heavy load because of where you are in your cycle, or you've just not really slept for 3 days. Like, it's just that, and then sort of being confident enough to sort of adapt and deal with the person that's in front of you. The program's there. Yeah. It's the framework, and it's how you're going to get to where you want to get to. But how you do that is incredibly messy along the way. It's not linear at all. So that's how I kind of work it out basically with my clients. Yeah,
brilliant. That's fantastic. Something you said earlier, which I really loved, is obviously that kind of, you're seeing maybe a little bit of a shift in terms of like more women kind of looking at their training more from a performance and a strength perspective, and kind of trying to progress those. Obviously, we can't ever kind of change someone's mindset on their behalf. But if for anyone listening that goes, I am this woman, I'm still kind of training for the calorie burn, I'm scared of getting bulky, and I don't really have performance-based goals, but I'd like to try and explore that a little bit more and move away from this because I now understand it doesn't really serve me. What tips could you maybe give that woman to help with that like mindset shift and change in perspective from kind of where they are to maybe where they want to be, more focused on performance and training related goals?
I think it's honestly looking at what it is that you want to do in terms of performance. Is it strength-based? Do you want to enter events? Is the training that you're doing at the moment serving to where you want to get to, and is it going to benefit you? If you want to enter a cycle event, if you want to do running, are you running? If you are, does your training support your running, or does your running fit into when your training comes? Look at the time frames of stuff as well. Be realistic. If you haven't run a marathon before, you're not going to be able to run a marathon in 2 months. It's very unlikely if you can. But then it's equally, what can you do now that's going to get you to start into where you want to get to as well? Not being afraid to ask questions and ask information. And the best thing you can do is either follow a program, but even better would be to work with a trainer, even if it is just in the interim and just a short period of time. Check your movement, check your form, check your technique. Is this right? Is this program suitable for where you are? Try and get recommendations if you're in a gym. Work with someone, maybe a friend's had a trainer, or look, this is where social media can come into its own, and there are benefits for it. If you do your research and you find the right people, it can be an incredible place for information, for finding coaches, for that sort of thing. But it's definitely the structure, implement progressive overload through that program. But if you're not sure, get someone to help you is literally the only thing that I can suggest as best as they can. you can read and research and do all of the things, but if you're not continually progressing, you're not really going to get to where you want to get to. You might be fine, but don't be afraid to just ask the questions, and just even if it's a little bit of research, follow a program and be realistic about what it is that you want to do, and do you even want to do the work, like at the end of the day as well, like, because sometimes it's like, in my mind, I'd love to run a marathon, but actually, do I want to be running in the dark on my own for however long? I don't know. Like, it's a nice idea in theory, and I think it's an incredible achievement, and I admire people immensely that can do this, but it's something I've always sort of struggled with, if mentally I'm actually in a space that I would want to do that sort of running distance and that work. The idea of a marathon, incredible, what an achievement, but getting there is a real different approach, or a different way of like being honest with yourself, and actually, are you going to do it? And that's the same with sort of training as well. But I think just in terms of more performance stuff as well, recovery is fundamental. It comes back to the same thing again. Like, you don't need to suddenly decide if you're going to enter, like, if you want to be a triathlete, fine. You want to enter some casual triathlete events, cool, good for you. It doesn't mean you then need to train 6-7 days a week and be doing cycle, swim, row, cycle, swim, row, cycle, swim, strength training, cycle, swim, whatever else, run. And then it's just a case of more is not always better, but it's listening to your body. When you need to rest. Do you need to go and see an osteopath? Maybe you should go and have a look at those aches and pains that are presenting. Oh, your knees are sore. Maybe go and get your gait analysed. Get a good pair of shoes. Like, are you wearing the right gear? And things like that. Even down to like sports bras, they're incredibly important. So it's just a case of, are you helping yourself as easy as, like, as best as you can first?
Yeah.
Get all the little sort of bits and pieces in line. Fill in the gaps of where maybe you don't know. Work with a trainer if you can. Work with a coach. Get a program. Get an online program. Start with the basics and then build up from there. But be realistic with what it is you want to achieve and sort of where you are now and where you want to get to and what that might look like. That's sort of my best advice, really.
Yeah, amazing. I love it. I think the being realistic and looking at the cost attached. You know, that's a great example. Love the idea of doing a marathon. Am I going to run when it's dark, or do I want to do that many Ks? No.
Like,
well,
yeah, you see the people that are like out sort of February, March time. It's pitch black. It's probably pouring with rain. They're on their own. They've probably been running for about 4 hours.
Yeah.
Like that April day, incredible. But the graft that goes in it before, and it's the same with clients when they come in with like a picture and be like, I want to look like this, and it's like, okay. No context, but for example, that person might have been training 5, 6, 7, 10 years. They've done this. They've been in a calorie surplus, which you are absolutely terrified to do. Yeah. So it's just sort of the layers and what it goes into getting to these events or getting to these achievements or getting to that physique. Yeah. It's not always as simple as, oh, well, let's just drop a 500 calorie deficit and then, you know, you'll look like that in 3 weeks and have a really hard sort of training 3 weeks and then you'll get there. It's so much more than that. Yeah,
I think most people aren't particularly good at kind of visualizing the cost attached with their goals.
No.
So, and if you've never done it before, that's obviously understandable because you wouldn't know. But
you don't know what you don't know at the end of the day. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really great advice. What from today have we maybe not gone into as much detail as you'd like to cover, or anything kind of based on those questions that you'd like to explore a little bit more that you think women should know about?
I think it's difficult when it comes to women's health conditions because the symptoms can be very, very similar across, similar to what can present in terms of menstrual cycle as well. So PMS symptoms can be pain, nausea, cramping, significant headaches, dehydration, mood swings and all of this, and they can be very, very similar across. So if you feel like something isn't right, go to the doctor. I know what I said earlier, and the referral process is like, it's not, but that is the pathway, unfortunately, for it. Another thing I would suggest is people get their bloods done. Get an idea of what your body's doing and get someone to look at it and explain it to you as well. Don't just go and get them done and then just don't use them. Like, go through a private company or go to the doctors and have some information, just have something, and look at it as it's health and it's your body and your well-being. It's not just you wanting to be into a smaller body. It's not just you wanting to be able to do X, Y, or Z. It's actually, how do you feel? do you feel well? Do you know what that is like to feel well? Like, how are you sleeping? Like, because I didn't know what it's like to feel well.
You ask someone how they're feeling, they're well, compared to my baseline, I feel fine, but their baseline's been pretty crap for 3 years.
I'm borderline exhausted, but I'm fine. It's that sort of thing as well. So without going too much detail into sort of the nuances of the different conditions and things like that, because there are nuances and there are differences, but it's not to blanket all of them in together. But it's start with the information. One of the most important things every woman should be doing is tracking their cycle, whether it's noting in your diary, whether you jot down a bit of paper, whether you use one of the apps. Start doing that as the absolute bare minimum. Give yourself a couple of months, see where the patterns are, if you're regular, if it's irregular, if there's no cycle. How long has that been? Do you know how long that's been? Do you still get symptoms? Because that can still occur as well. Like, just because you don't have a menstrual cycle doesn't mean that your body's not going through the stages, ovulating, these sorts of things as well. So it's just a case of get the information that you want first and start listening to your body. It's fundamental. And then if things don't feel right, if things don't look right, then go and speak to a professional and don't be afraid to ask for help in that sense as well, whether that's with your training. If you're not sure, find a program that you think is suitable, work with a coach, do your research. That would be my main kind of things around that sort of, but it's this whole picture of things, and it sounds like it's this massive thing, but if you can improve your sleep by 15-20 minutes in a night, that's an hour and a half ish, give or take, over a week. That you've improved it over a month, it's nearly 6 hours. 6 hours of sleep over a month. So it's those things, it's those small changes over time, and that little bit of consistency and sort of those building blocks that actually over a period of time really do add up to make quite a significant change. And it's stepping in the right direction of what optimizing your health, that solely is your health. It's not whoever else's body it might be. So I think that's sort of where it comes back to as well.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I love that. That's a great answer. Are you familiar with fertility?
Yeah, I have sort of some familiarity with it. Yeah. Yeah,
just a good, when you mentioned obviously the private option, just a really good option.
Yeah, that's great. Omnos is another one that's a really good sort of one as well.
I just did one of their tests actually.
Yeah, a company I've used as well. They're brilliant and they talk you all through it. It's very, very thorough. There's information after it, and I found it very beneficial for myself as well. So yeah, those things are out there, but it's just gathering the information at first. And yeah, it is a little bit of work, but at the end of the day, you've got one body and it's your body. So you kind of, if you want to feel good, do right by your body and it will look after you. So
I love that. Amazing. Where can people find out a little bit more about your content? The kind of various resources that you might have available and working with you.
Yeah, of course. So my just on Instagram, to be honest, is the easiest one for me. Danielle Frost _PT. So that's the easiest one for me to find, and I've got bits and pieces on there. Linktree and stuff is all on there. So website, working with me one-to-one, online coaching, and that sort of thing as well. I also do sort of workshops and education stuff for women's health, pre and postnatal as well. So yeah, that's all kind of on there. It's the easiest way to find me is all the information there.
Yeah, amazing. Is there any specific events you've got coming up that you'd like to share?
Not actually for the rest of this calendar year yet, but from sort of January, February next year there will be, and then I'll put those bits and pieces out on website and then onto like Instagram and stuff as well as when they're coming. So yeah, some cool stuff coming up.
Cool. Hopefully. Yeah, if you remember, just send them over and we'll obviously reshare them nearer the time. And for anyone interested in one-on-one, what one of the third spaces is it that you train your clients out of?
So I am at Islington, but if people come to me, then I'm happy to sort of see where they're at as well. I can meet them at a different gym and then we can kind of go from there and see how best I can help them. But yeah, I'm based over at our Islington club.
Amazing. That was amazing. Anything else that you've kind of thought of in the last few minutes that you just want to kind of put some final thoughts, some closing show notes on?
You know, I think I've summarised everything. My main thing is just track your cycle. Track your cycle, and 90% of people can improve their sleep. Yeah. So that's my main thing. So those two things, and I'll be good. I love that. Some important takeaways. Cool. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing that. That was a really insightful episode. And yeah, I really appreciate you telling your story. I think that's going to be super relatable for people, especially with the time frame. So thank you so much for sharing that. And then that subsequent information was brilliant. Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. It's been brilliant. If you've enjoyed today's episode, it would be amazing if you could do us a massive favour and leave us a review and even if possible a comment.
The reason why this is so useful for us is it allows us to know which type of content and which guests are best going to be relevant for you and your goals, so that we can continue to make the podcast even better for you in the future. Thank you so much so far for all of your support on the Women's Wellness Show.